starring Brian Baker, Dylan Troutman,
and Ann Steele as the camera woman. Good evening, news viewers. This is Brian Schmokin, Channel 77 Action News. Today we are interviewing Bob Fluco, the parent of Dylan Sanchez, who we interviewed yesterday. We are sitting in the school right now, and I'm asking him his thoughts on the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Oh, we're rolling. Oh, sorry. My thoughts about it. I think the Soviets are. I don't think they could be. They're too much wimps to even think about bombing the United States. So I don't think we have anything to worry about.
Mr. Fluco, do you feel threatened in any way?
Nope, no threat at all.
So you don't think that the Soviet Union is going to launch an attack on the United States?
We're going to what? An attack?
Launch an attack.
Oh, okay. I thought you said lunch. No, I do not think that at all. Because if they would, we would bomb them right back immediately. And said so John F. Kennedy in his speech.
Yes, but that would start a nuclear war, and we'd all die.
Well, they would have to make the first step. And John F. Kennedy started a division made of 12 men called the XCOM that are starting a defense system against the missile crisis in Cuba.
How do you feel about Fidel Castro setting up missiles in Cuba after the Bay of Pigs invasion?
Well, actually, I think it's practically suicide to set up missiles that close to the United States.
Why is that?
Well, because our United States is always worried about nuclear warfare, and we don't want it anywhere near us, where it's possible for them to launch it.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. Within the past week, unmistakable evidence has established the fact that a series of offensive missile sites is now in preparation on that imprisoned island. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere. Upon receiving the first preliminary hard information of this nature last Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., I directed that our surveillance be stepped up, and having now confirmed and completed our evaluation of the evidence and our decision on a course of action, this government feels obliged to report this new crisis to you in fullest detail. The characteristics of these new missile sites indicate two distinct types of installations. Several of them include medium-range ballistic missiles, capable of carrying a nuclear warhead for a distance of more than 1,000 nautical miles. In short, each of these missiles, in short, is capable of striking Washington, D.C., the Panama Canal, Cape Canaveral, Mexico City, or any other city in the southeastern part of the United States, in Central America, or in the Caribbean area.
Dear Mr. President, imagine, Mr. President, what if we were to present you to such an ultimatum as you have presented to us by your actions? How would you react to it? I think you would be outraged at such a move on our part, and this we would understand. Having presented these conditions to us, Mr. President, you have thrown down the gauntlet. Who asked you to do this? By what right have you done this? Our ties with the Republic of Cuba, as well as our relations with other nations, regardless of their political system, concern only the two countries between which these relations exist. And if it were a matter of quarantine, as mentioned in your letter, then as is customary in international practice, it can be established only by states agreeing between themselves, and not by some third party. Quarantines exist, for example, on agricultural, food, and products. However, in this case, we are not talking about quarantines, but rather about much more serious matters, and you yourself understand this. His Excellency, Mr. John F. Kennedy, President of the United States of America, Washington. You, Mr. President, are not declaring a quarantine, but rather issuing an ultimatum. And if you are threatening that if we do not obey your orders, you will use force. Think about what you are saying. And you want to persuade me to agree to this? What does it mean to agree to these demands? It would mean for us to conduct our relations with other countries by not reason, but by yielding to tyrants. You are not appealing to reason. You want to intimidate us. No, Mr. President, I cannot agree to this, and I think that deep inside you will admit that I am right. I am convinced that if you were in my place, you would do the same. Respectfully, Nikita Khrushchev. The Cuban Missile Crisis was the closest the world ever came to a nuclear war. The United States Armed Forces were at their highest state of readiness over the Soviet field commanders in Cuba were prepared to use battlefield nuclear weapons to defend the island if it was invaded. Luckily, thanks to the bravery of two men, President John F. Kennedy and Premier Nikita Khrushchev, war was averted. Tensions finally began to ease on October 28th when Khrushchev announced that he would dismantle the installations and return the missiles to the Soviet Union, expressing his trust that the United States would not invade Cuba. Further negotiations were held to implement the October 28th agreement, including a United States demand the Soviet light bombers be removed from Cuba, and specifying the exact form and conditions of the United States assurance not to invade Cuba.